All right, my favorite people, Sterling White here. And today, by the end of this, for those of you who are still wondering, is it better for me to jump into apartments or houses? I'll give you insights to where you'll be able to make a practical decision. So you'll want to stay tuned. All right, those of you on the YouTube, you know the next steps. Hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell just below. That way you can be informed every Tuesday and Thursday when I drop this content. And those of you who are listening on other platforms, whether you're doing some skating backwards, that would be pretty cool while listening, is once you're done with that, either on iTunes or let's say World Star Hip Hop. No, I'm not on World Star Hip Hop, but other platforms, leave that rating and feedback. It would really mean the world because I'm constantly looking to improve to make the experience better for you overall. So yeah, by the end of this is I really just want to give you the insights and share my story because I often get this question is which option should I go into? And we had a mentee of ours, Jake Cowley, who came to us with the goal of 90 days to acquire his first property, of which he didn't know whether to go with buy and hold of single family, to go straight to multifamily, fix and flip. And we helped him with his purchase strategy and just in essence said, these are the pros and cons to each, which one would make the most sense for you long-term with your investment philosophy. And on his 81st day, his goal was 90 days to acquire his first multifamily property, and he was able to get it in his 81st day. So shout out to you, Jake Cowley, on that. But the first point I want to mention is just sharing my story because the question I get often is, Sterling, should I start in single family or shall I jump right to multifamily? I always give a personal experience share. So if I were to go do it all over again, I would still start with single family. I know some people would say you're crazy for that, or they would just have a different opinion. Doesn't matter to me. Is that I was able to get my foot in the door with that very first deal with my mentor with no money out of pocket, and I enjoyed it. And because some things that what most people don't consider is they may get that first deal and decide, this actually isn't a good fit. So you actually want to get your first deal as quickly as possible. Of course, you want to protect your downside and risk and just not go into any deal. But you may get into it and decide that, I really don't even enjoy this industry. So that's one thing that could happen. But from that is I was able to scale to 150 single families and then use that experience, and then that first deal was a 46 unit, and it didn't even seem as if this high mountain or wall that I had to climb over in order to get that, because I had all the previous single family experience. Because I can tell you, buying that many single families and managing is quite intensive. And a lot of moving parts, a lot of people we had to bring onto our team to do that infrastructure. That's a lot of moving parts. So we had a lot of people that we had to manage, a lot of systems and processes that we had to put in place to manage and also acquire that many single families. And then when we transitioned to multifamily, it was, well, we don't need this big team that we currently have. We can actually slim down and be even more dialed in, less moving parts, headaches, etc. So that's my story on that. I would still do single family. So let's go into some pros and cons, or really some differences, some really brief ones that I want to mention, and just translate them to my story and how this applies with really going into more of which would be a good fit for you. And what we'll do just below is there will be a link in the description of a buying criteria. And that's one of the things, actually, we'll take a step back, is instead of a link to that, it'll be a link to another sheet. There's so many resources that we can provide to you, but this resource will be the strengths and weaknesses and allow you to be able to dial in which model that makes the most sense to you, because you may want to do buy and hold, but you may be in California where buy and hold for cash flow may be difficult. So in that case, it's just follow the link in the description, and within that is there'll be a worksheet that you can work through to help you through your purchase strategy. So let's go with single families. Is one, there is a lower barrier of entry. It's very simple to be able to get into. Majority of the time is the price point is a lot lower than what you would get with a multifamily property. Of course, that is market dependent, but many of the times that is the case. So lower barrier of entry for you to get your foot in the door and get started, versus on the multifamily side is some people feel it can be a little bit more daunting. There's many more units. There's more zeros at the end of it. And I see that people run into analysis paralysis because they want to go bigger for the multifamily and they just never take action because they get stuck in analysis paralysis mode. So single families, lower barrier of entry, easier to get in, get your foot in the door, and then the snowball effect can happen from that point in time. And then the second along with this is there's just more single families that are out there. And what that is, there's just more access for you to be able to get a deal. Versus on the multifamily side is I wouldn't say there is a limited supply, but depending on what your niche is. So for us is we're acquiring apartments that are 75 plus units, between 75 to 160 units that have been built between 1970 and 2000. So there's only a finite of apartments that have been built in any given market that fit that criteria, versus on the single family, if you have certain criteria, there's many more that you can pick from and still go back to get your foot in the door. And then from there is start to leverage that experience, learn from it, and then you can keep transitioning and using the compound effect. Which is a great book by Darren Hardy. So if you haven't read that book, it's called Compound Effect. And now let's go to the multifamily side. Is that when the transition, I had decided we've got this 150 single families. It was a complete nightmare with managing all those, and then also trying to scale that, because at one point wanted to be at 1,000 single families. That would have been quite a bit from that. Very ambitious, fully achievable, but quite a bit of moving parts in an infrastructure in order to be able to have that a business model. So from that is on the multifamily is made the shift. Very first deal was a 46 unit, and that's when the light bulb ultimately went off. But for some people that can be very daunting to them to go up to, let's say, a 5 or 6 unit. So that's the con with that. So starting with the single family, get the track record, build up from there. And then the second pro to the multifamily is it's just more scalable. Is you've got 46 units that were all in one location. And then it was just one buyer that we had to deal with from that. And all the materials when we're doing the rehab, they're all in one location. All of the tenants and residents are all in one location. So those were the benefits with that. But it's still, for most, they see that 46 unit deal and they say there's no way I can be able to acquire that. But for ourselves is one, track record of the single families, and then it really didn't look as much of an animal or a huge mountain to overcome. And then also mentorship too. If you can find someone that's out there that's already where you are, and just ask them, hey, I see that you're taking down this deal, would love to be a part of it. Maybe you invest some money within the deal, or you can see how you can contribute within their business, or maybe they've written a book about it. That way you can get insights, or they're doing content such as this talking about the actual deal, and that's a way you can be able to get insights as well on how to get into it. So I would say those are really the differences, and you just have to understand, okay, these are all the pros and cons with the single family, and understand that, okay, those pros outweigh the cons for myself, for my investment philosophy that I'm starting out at and where I wish to go. And then looking at the model of multifamily and looking at, okay, these are the pros and cons. And at some point, yes, I would like to be there, but I am not able to, or wouldn't feel comfortable just yet in being able to make that transition. So I'm just going to go with this model, or maybe even go and self-storage, but actually this topic, I don't want to digress too much, is and then from there you say, okay, I'm going to start with single family, get my foot in the door, and then start to leverage that experience, then make the transition. Or maybe you feel comfortable enough to go straight to multifamily, because I'll pull from both ends. Yes, if you can go multifamily at the start, it makes so much more sense because you are able to protect your downside on the risk. Because what the single family property is, it's either 100% occupied or 100% vacant. And when it's 100% vacant, you still have that mortgage. If you have debt that's on it, that mortgage that's coming in. But let's say you have a 10 unit, 2 residents are not paying, or it's 80% occupied, is you still should have enough. Hopefully you bought the property right and put and did finance right, and then in that case is you would have enough income to be able to service the debt as well as the expenses, and you still have income on top of that for yourself. So yes, I'm pulling from both ends. Is one, I would still start with single family because I was able to learn so much from that, and then made the transition from all that experience. But at the same time, once I got in multifamily, we from that point is no longer cut off the single family acquisitions to entirely focus on that, because that's when the light bulb just went off that it makes more sense. It's very scalable, it's more efficient, it's less moving parts with employees that you have to bring on, marketing, all the people that you have to manage, etc. So would love to hear from you. Based upon what I've shared from you, which one are you leaning more towards? Are you leaning more towards the single family side, or are you leaning more towards apartments and multifamily? So go ahead and comment below on that. And then those of you on the YouTube, hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you can be informed moving forward. And then below, we'll have a guide as well that will be getting started in investing. Actually, not so much getting started, but it'll be a way for you to understand through actual deal case studies of my very first single family house deal, and then my 46 unit deal as well. So just below there will be in the description just a link to that, and always willing to hear from everyone, the feedback, how am I doing, is there something that I may have missed, or a topic that you wish for me to cover more on and go in more depth. So comment below on that and leave a rating. I read as much as I can and take that feedback and start to implement and execute to make your experience better. So I appreciate you all so much. One thing is constantly just work towards becoming the strongest version of self, because who knows how long that we're going to be on this planet, or what happens once we leave this planet. So why not decide to make this time that we have on Earth the best, make it the best that we can, because let's say you're in analysis paralysis mode, or you feel as if you've got limiting beliefs that maybe it's your age, you don't have the capital to buy your first deal. That one is, what's the alternative to not reaching your goal and to not purchasing that property? That one, you can start buying more properties and ultimately reach financial freedom to where you don't have to work in your 9 to 5. So if you're committed enough, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. So you just have to find that main driver that'll be the lever that you can push to allow you to weather the storm, to overcome any limiting beliefs or any obstacles or challenges that you may have, because there's always a way. So I appreciate you all. Catch you on the next one. Thank you.